Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, April the 28th of 2021, and we're here for Rudy's Psychic Meetup, which of course means that we have Rudy here. Hey, Rudy.
Hey everyone, welcome. We got some great topics tonight, and Sam, I'm thinking we should just jump right into it because I always think these are going to go quickly, and then I end up with all this content, and I just, we get so busy. So let's jump right into it because I think I see some interest from the people that are in here already. The first thing I want to talk about tonight is numerology. So numerology is the study of numbers, and it looks for meanings and number combinations that are in your life or particular letters in your name, things of that nature. And so this is something where, and you often see where, maybe someone has a life path number, which is your, birth month, day, and year. You start to add those together and you reduce everything down to a single number, and this number has meaning. Or your name, you'll take what letter in the alphabet it is, reduce all this down to a single number, and that has some sort of meaning. Sam, what are your thoughts on just the theory of numerology? Is this just kind of another tool, like maybe people use like tarot cards, where really they have some abilities, but they're using this as a tool to prescribe meaning? Or is there actually something to these number combinations that are in our lives?
So, the games that it was mostly little girls used to play on the playground when they would make these, you would fold up these
Yeah,
cards and and do that, like,
yeah,
and then they would like pick a number and then you'd go like that, and then then you'd open up and there would be an answer on the bottom. And I find that it's in human nature to want to play these games,
ah,
right? Because this is a very natural thing. But I did get information from the people on the other side, like a long time ago, that there is something to numerology, just like there is something to astrology. And if you
interesting.
had asked me that my personal opinion on it, I would have just said, nah, I don't believe any of it. But again, the people on the other side, they're not me. They know everything, and and the more I ask questions, the more I realize I don't know. It's really been very eye-opening for me.
That's really interesting because I would thought you would say people are making this stuff up, and that's part of the thing is we're always looking for meaning and ways to find meaning in our lives and to things that we're doing, and so numerology is one thing that draws people in. But we've also seen where people see repeating numbers. I see this in the Discord quite a bit, where people see a number that's repeating over and over again. And I think we've kind of talked about this before, where sometimes the universe will give us these little winks where it'll
Yeah.
help us notice things, but that's not necessarily numerology. And sometimes you can look these up on websites and people will call them angel numbers and attribute meanings to them. But what are your thoughts, Sam? I mean, I was kind of thinking that maybe it's not so much that a number has a meaning, but that we're noticing there's a pattern, and that's kind of the wink that we're getting from universe. Or do you think these numbers actually have meanings to them?
Well, I think that there are some meanings to the numbers. I couldn't say exactly what, but I will say that probably 90% of it is minutia. That's been, again, humans like to make up stuff, right? They like to have
Yeah,
stories and games and things to answer their questions. And I liken it to like using a pendulum to get
yeah,
your answers for things. I mean, sometimes it's right, I mean, sometimes there are spirits moving it and stuff. It's just that unfortunately sometimes those things are familiar spirits, and and they don't have the best interests at heart. It's best to kind of stay away from that stuff. So I don't really don't know much about the numerology part of it, but I do agree with them using it as a wink from the
yeah,
universe. And also going back probably about, gosh, I'd have to go back in the material from the very early days, and that is, people were listing different things like that numbers meant, and I
hmm
was like, that's right, that's not right. Do you remember that? I was
I
like,
do. Yeah, those are almost a year, probably a year or two, a year and a half ago. I
yeah,
think we did went over some of those things.
yeah, yeah. And
I,
it was weird. They were telling me like this here, and it's just that, again, there's so much, there's just a few flowers, but there's so many weeds, right?
Oh, well, that's good to know. Yeah, I'll have to start searching my content of to see what topics we covered and see what I can remember. But no, that's good information. So it does mean something. And yeah, we are not licensed numerologists. Consult your official numerologist for a reading. All right. Well, next let's jump into time cycles and calendars, and this kind of brings me in to sort of some predictions and astrology and that type of thing. So As humans here on this planet, we have learned to look at the stars and the moon and the sun and measure time in a way. So we have solar time, which is, the time it takes the Earth to rotate, or the appearance of the sun rotating around the Earth, right? So that typically gives us our seasons, our year, that type of measurement. We also have lunar calendars that are really kind of that moon cycles that we have, two full moons a month, typically 28 days for moon cycles. And this seems to be aligned to habits of wildlife, sea life especially. And as humans, we seem to kind of use these two types of calendars to govern our lives for the most part, especially in modern times. There's also sidereal time, which is used in astrology, and this is a timekeeping method. It's also something astronomers use, and it looks at the Earth in position to fix stars. So it's just a different way of tracking movement that's very important, but not so much that we use in our day-to-day lives. But Sam, is understanding in how to measure time and the motion of the stars, is that an important part of us humans developing as a species? Like, did we need to do this? Was this planned? Or is this just more of a byproduct of us living in this 3D realm?
I would say it's more of a byproduct. I
Okay.
mean, things are still going to move forward with the plan, regardless of our recognition of the stars or not.
Okay. So it's just us understanding the mechanics of how things are work. Um, the one culture, this got a lot of press back in 2012, is the Mayans. They had a pretty elaborate calendar system that seemed to incorporate all these. They were able to track, not only the sun, the moon, but also the progression of planets. So the Mayans were indigenous people of Mexico, Central America, that region, the Yucatan Peninsula. And the culture was active between, 2600 BC and 1800 BC. But using, they had built on calendars to use the people developed before them, and using their knowledge of astronomy and math, developed really one of the most accurate calendar systems known to man. And they had this fascination with cycles and how, time. And if you think about their calendar, it was almost these cogs within cogs of a larger and larger wheel. And the most famous of this is the Mayan long count calendar. And this gained attention in around 2012 when everyone thought the world was going to end. But it really is this cycle that measures for about 5,126 years, roughly. And this is one of the longest cycles found in the calendar system. And it ended on December 21st, 2012. So, Sam, with this Mayan calendar, do you think this is really as accurate as we think it is? Does this really is this like a great representation of how the planets move throughout our solar system and even the Milky Way?
Oh, the Mayan calendar. Oh,
Mayan calendar.
I thought you were going to ask me more of about what it meant with 2012, and I heard the saying, all good things must come to an end, and the fact that the Mayans did, and like their society ended after 800 years, so they could not create any newer, lengthier calendars. So it would be like, I remember, cleaning out my dad's stuff, and then they're taking his calendar down off of the wall, right
Oh, yeah.
after he passed away, and it's like, oh, okay, no more calendars. He won't have any more calendars. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like with the Mayans, this calendar that they created was, it was very rudimentary but accurate as far as measuring the stars. It just goes to show you that there were a number of societies from, even thousands of years ago who were significantly advanced. I mean, not everybody was like living in caves and, still chopping off their neighbor's head for mid-meal or something. People had created communities and, and I think that the Mayan calendar was just, again, a residual of that society being in this 3D realm, trying to understand time. And of course, them being a society that would, be growing their own food and stuff. This would be an important aspect as well. But I try not to, I don't read too much into that, the Mayans and the calendar. I don't think that there was anything more to it than really, these people being advanced in this area and wanting to be able to measure the time, and more importantly, the lengths of the seasons because of the food growing.
Yeah, one of the things is that they tracked, in particular, Venus and the eclipses and all this, but they were also really good at tracking these precessions of planets. So where maybe the Pleiades star system would, you would see it raise over the horizon on one day of the year, and how it would gradually move. And like, it might take 100 years before it moves back to that same position again. So they were able to get these things really accurate. And the one theory that came out in 2012 is their calendar ends basically when the Earth lines up. I think it was like the Earth and the Sun and the center of the Milky Way line up, which is kind of that, I forget what they call that, the birth canal of the universe, right?
Right.
And so people are thinking that something's going to happen then, but it was really just somehow, I don't know if it was a coincidence or they planned it, but that this long count calendar ends on that date, and then obviously the cycle starts over again. So that's something that people are curious. Did that have some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence helping them with that, or was this they were just really good at it?
Well, that would have been around the timeline, wouldn't it, for
Yeah,
extraterrestrial, the 2600 BC?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because people say it even almost forecast this wobble that's in our solar system, the way we see the other planets in the Milky Way, which is really interesting because you would think, how would a culture that rudimentary, or as we think of it, be able to know those that kind of information? So, all right, well, interesting. But I'm just glad the world didn't end in 2012 and we have cryptos to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, so the last thing I want to cover then tonight is sort of the principles of astrology. Why does astrology seem to work? I know you've mentioned in the past that Joni Patry is someone that a lot of us watch. She's really good, and she focuses on Vedic astrology. And Vedic astrology is part of the Vedas, and it's an ancient art of studying the planetary movements and an impact on life with respect to time and energy. And this, originated in India. And the Maharishi Parashara, sorry, I can't say the name right, is the father of Vedic astrology. And he actually wrote a lot of this down in the Brihad Pashara Hora Shastra. And so this is like the basics of Vedic astrology. So there's 9 planets, 12 signs of the zodiac, 27 constellations. And the premise is that each of these planets and constellations exert these powerful vibrations that control the destiny of man. So it's kind of a combination of mysticism, mathematical knowledge, astronomy that interprets this energy flowing from the heavens. And so your horoscope is very powerful. It can reveal a lot to your life. Sam, any thoughts on why Vedic astrology in particular seems to be accurate? Is there something about this position of the planets, or is there people that are practicing it, really developing their intuitive abilities? What do you think on the whole astrology?
I think much of astrology can be compared to like the tarot cards. I think the people who are really good, like I think like Jodi Petrie,
Patry, yeah.
I think she has abilities beyond what normies have.
Okay. That's what I think with a lot of these folks that are, really good practitioners, whether it's numerology, they seem to have a lot more going on than just being able to study these books. I mean, they can study these things and they have a lot of knowledge, but then that intuitiveness kind of takes them to that next level that other people can't get to.
Well, it's just like the people who work on television shows who end up predicting the future. I mean, they didn't know what they were doing. Like, they really didn't. It's not like they sat down and said, well, I'm going to hide this information in there. It's like it's the same. It's like, for me, it's all in the blab.
Yeah.
And going back and watching some of the videos that are hits, like significant hits, I look at it now and I'm like, yep, it truly is all in the blab. Because when I was saying that, I even missed the actual meaning of it. And it's only after it happened that we look back and we hear the blab and you're like, yeah, you know what? We didn't think of that option. We didn't think of that. But then when it came to pass, looking back, and the fact that, like, when I clairaudibly hear somebody say something to me, like they're shouting it to me, and I'm just like, I know that it's right. I know that it's going to happen. I just try to, am I going to translate this right? That's probably, I would say, 90% of the challenge. The difference between me and someone who would be, I guess, quote unquote, an equal medium with equal gifts would be the ability to translate. So I do believe that there are lots of people out there who are like me, who haven't reached this level of ability to translate yet.
Okay. That makes sense. And back to astrology, what I was thinking of in terms of, I'm sitting here thinking, well, how does it work? Why does it work? And, if you think about, do the planets exhibit some sort of energy on us when we are born? And I was thinking about this, and, really, when you are an infant and you're born, that whole time that you're growing, you're within your mother's auric field. Her energy is around you. And really, why is birth time so important? Well, that's the first time you are brought out into the world, and you're subjected to the energies around you. Do the planets really have this energetic pattern that maybe they imprint on you when you first emerge from your mother? Do you think there's something to that?
I don't think it would be that's the right description.
Okay.
But I do see that there is a tie with our personalities and decisions that we make in the future based on at what point in time we were born.
Okay.
And yeah, that's why the time of day that you were born is
Right.
important as
Yeah.
well. It makes a difference.
Depends on which planets are in the sky. And yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. So sorry, folks, I was trying to solve the mysteries of Vedic astrology. But it's an interesting theory. Is why do these things work? What energy are the planets sending off that we're picking up on, or is it the planets, or is it something else, and we just attribute this to the planets? So interesting stuff. There are some people who really know Vedic astrology, even within our group there. So hopefully I did this justice for those of you that have a lot of interest in this topic. All right, Sam, that's what I wanted to cover tonight for our topics. Let's go into the questions. Looks like we got about 20 questions. All right. We're ready to click away as we go. So the first question we have tonight is from Tiffany. Next question comes from Sean. Hi, Sam and Rudy. We all know about frequency and how they can affect you in a positive or negative way. Have you heard about the 444 hertz and how this frequency is supposed to be very positive, uplifting, a very positive, uplifting one? This area is very interesting, and 528 hertz is also supposed to be very good and positive to listen to. Any thoughts on this? Thank you.
Yes, frequency. I have heard of this before, and I do know that, especially where we're made of so much water, I do know that frequencies do affect us.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's been a long time, but I think we kind of touched on this a while ago, and it's, I think the church used to tune their instruments to be at a certain, be at this 423 hertz, so that you got a more positive vibe out of this music. In modern TV and music isn't tuned to this, or modern equipment, but you can tune things to this. So interesting, it does impact you. All right. Our next question comes from Mark. Hi, Sam and Rudy. For over a decade, $4 billion of Australia's gold has been sitting with the Bank of England with no formal agreement as to how and when audits can be conducted. What's going on? Is the Bank of England lending out the gold? Thanks.
I don't think they have it. That's why they're not auditing. The Bank of England, they stole Australia's gold. Well, I told you they're in trouble. I told you they're going in the toilet, man. The UK.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, oh, get out of there if you can. But you know what? If you can't, it's fine too, because it's not going to be the end or anything. I mean, you guys still have Nigel Farage, and I saw him pulling it all out of the toilet there, being everybody's savior politician finally.
Do you think it'll come out about the gold, like England not having the gold, or in some sort of?
Oh yeah, everybody's going to be in so much trouble. I think there was one that you missed above from Sean. It had 4 votes.
Sorry about that. All right. Unless it got upvoted. All right. Sean says, hi, Sam and Rudy. Elon Musk has said that this reality has a very high probability that is simulated like a computer game. I think he's wrong on this, as we are the creators working with Source. We are Source, and not the government, kid in the basement, or alien tech creating our reality. Any thoughts? I'd love to hear what you both think. Thank you so much, Sean. Are we in a computer simulation, Sam?
No. We are creators working with Source, which we are part of. It's sort of like we're all over there, and then in order to come over here to the 3D realm or the Earth realm, we break off our little individual little light balls, come down through, are carried by our little angel through that the in-between area between here and there. And then boom, you come out as a human, and then you have to exist here, and then all the rest of us are over there watching us over here and how we deal with things. I mean, the only one who is really getting the entertainment part of it is the people on the other side watching us try to figure stuff out. And that's why, like I said, they take significant opportunities to utilize people like myself. And I think we are headed through some rapids. It's like heading through you know, when you go through the rapids, and then after you get through the rapids, the water is really nice and calm, and you know, you can just float down the river lazily. Well, that's kind of what I see us going through, is that we're going to have to go through some rapids, and then things will be calm, and we'll have, I guess I call it the 1,000 years of peace. It's like the Great Renaissance. And but you know, the rapids, they can be very scary and stuff, and what better to have in your back pocket than a whole bunch of people who have significant abilities to read minds and tell the future.
All right. Yeah, I'm wondering how many more ideas like this Elon says as time goes on, right? Because you've seen some things about Elon, so that's an interesting one. All right. Raymond says, "Hello, Sam and Rudy. When ghosts appear in a room, they often move things. But if you had a plate of cookies and candy in the room, would they eat them? Would eating them be physical, or would they just absorb the taste and the experience spiritually? I'm still trying to figure out what happened to them licking cookies that were left out for Santa Claus every year. Thanks."
No, ghosts can't eat anything. That's for sure. And Dad was eating the cookies.
Right. Well, do they, because Barton has mentioned this before in stories where you kind of bring tobacco or water as an offering or something for spirits if you know they're there. Are they able to, I guess they couldn't really interact with them, but is there some sort of like etherical drink they can interact with, you think? Or is it just more the gesture that you're providing to them?
Oh, it's the gesture.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good to know. Yeah, I don't know if I told you, Ghost Kid is back. I got the other night, a couple of weeks ago, I got this light scratch on my arm. It woke me up. I thought it was my wife, and I'm like, "Oh, who's that?"
Yeah, there you go.
But didn't steal any of my cookies. All right, Hummingbird says, "Hi, Sam and Rudy. I saw a story about the Sea of Trees forest by Mount Fuji. The forest is eerily quiet, and they say that many people go there to commit suicide. Are there places that attract and hold negative energies? Is it possible to clear that kind of negativity from an area? For example, when I entered the fields at Gettysburg years ago, it was so eerie, and I could feel the pain, and I began to cry. Thank you both for the great live stream."
That's a great question, Hummingbird. I believe about the Sea of Trees. And I mean, it's eerily quiet just because of its location. I don't think it has a lot in the way of wind whistling through it. Plus, I don't think that it has the type of trees that make that rustling sound so much when the wind does go through it. So that might be why it's eerily quiet. And you know, people decided to commit suicide there. And then once it became, once the information was shared that a lot of people were committing suicide there, then it became a choice. Like we have a bridge here that they just recently, a couple of years ago, they had to put the suicide nets up on the bridge. So they had to make it harder for people to jump off the bridge. Because what happened is that once word got out that people were successfully committing suicide off of that bridge, guess what? The number of suicides, went way up.
It gets a reputation, right?
Yeah. So that I feel that is also what happened. And so the negative energies that are there are just, if you have any one place where a whole bunch of people are murdered or committed suicide, you are going to get a lot more people. There's a higher percentage of people who are caught in between when they have died suddenly, unexpectedly, tragically, or, with suicide, where they're expecting things to end and they're surprised that things have not ended. But of course, they're not unhappy anymore. They just realize that they made a terrible mistake. That's what they all tell me, the people who've committed suicide that I've only spoken to a few. Not everybody who commits suicide gets caught in between. I don't want people to get that impression. So if you have had a child or a parent or a friend or whoever who's committed suicide, that doesn't necessarily mean that they got caught in between. I've just noticed that as an issue with a higher percentage than, the normal people who are just, live and die normally and, and then pass over and, and then they start watching us on the other side and getting that kind of entertainment, or it's not a computer simulation, but it is entertainment. And is it possible to clear the kind of negativity from an area? Yes, it is. It would take a long time though, and you would need a number of people who have these types of healing abilities. I don't know if I do or not. I've never tried it. I wonder if I went around with some sage speaking in tongues, if that would be helpful. I would be willing to try something like that. Maybe these are things I could do in my next career when I leave cryptos. We'll be going on a little adventure. I'll be pushing the boundary, seeing exactly what I can do.
And I think with Gettysburg, we talked about that a while back as well. And I think the topography there's a lot of granite underneath that has a lot of, that is a type of rock that seems to hold energy, a lot of quartz, things of that nature. So,
yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of ghost sightings at Gettysburg too. That's correct. William Penn writes an interesting question. Don't know if the subject was covered. Is the St. Louis Arch made to change weather patterns? Was there something behind the design? And I think you're talking about this St. Louis Arch, William Penn. So I'm from that area, and this was built in the 60s. It's a 630 foot or 192 meters tall as it is wide. And this was it's a stainless steel arch meant to be the gateway to the west. It was a monument because a lot of people would come from the west. They would cross the Mississippi at St. Louis and before they'd head off to the west. But Sam, are there any effects that on weather that this 600 or 192 meter stainless steel tower can have on local weather, do you think?
No.
Okay.
No, weather is like a really big thing. So it's not even an area thing. It's more like it's a global thing. Weather is.
Okay. Yeah, and growing up there, I know we never had tornadoes in the area in the city, and never really heard a lot of weird lightning strikes or anything like that. So it just, I don't ever recall it affecting the area from what I can remember growing up. Our next question comes from Matt Zelenko. Nice to see you guys. Chris Thomas Wakefield has a YouTube channel and a Facebook group which he presents his vision of the end of the world as we know it. He claims that Planet X, or Nibiru, will cause a nearly total destruction of the Earth due to the pole shift. He maintains he was told in a dream that this event will, beyond any doubt in his own words, occur February 2023. A group of several thousand people follows him on Facebook. How do you view this revolution, truth or fiction?
Well, I'm going to view that as fiction. And I would be very surprised if this Chris Thomas Wakefield has a track record. I challenge anybody who says stuff like that, look and see if they have any proof of their abilities. That's why I create these videos, to show my readings, predictions that have come true. I mean, some people have been with me now for 2 years, so they've seen so many things. They're like, yeah, she's real. She's a real medium. But this, I would be if somebody told me this kind of stuff, Planet X and Nibiru, and they're going to cause nearly total destruction to Earth, right? And I'd be like, okay, well, who is this person, and why do you even care what he thinks, right? And I would look through, and I would be like, I would want to see like probably 100 things that the guy has predicted in the last 2 years. I'd be like, easily. Because I mean, I have probably a couple hundred things since I started. And if you can't come up with anything, and this guy's doing that, all he's doing is what did I say to I told my friend, she asked me about the channel and stuff, how are things going and this and that. And I told her, I was explaining to her how, we do things and stuff. And I was telling her about some other people. And I said, there's people who aren't even real, like psychic mediums, and they have like these huge followings. Yeah. Right. So I know that since I am real, that I'll get much, much bigger than any of these people. But because I want to get my message out there. Like, I want to be able to tell people, like, I want to be able to show people my ability, showcase them, and then give them the information that they need. so that collectively everybody on the globe will see what is happening. And how, it's like, you got to throw your governments out of power. Like, you have to get rid of them and put people in place who actually care about you. They don't care about you. And the ones who do get elected, who do care, they're just surrounded by so many corrupt people. It's just beyond.
And a lot of these theories, I know, when you're waking up, so to speak, or you're in that believing mindset, you're looking for answers. There are a lot of these offshoots that you can easily get drawn into, and we've all looked into them and stuff. But Sam has a good point that look at the history. There's always been these types of predictions. We just talked about the 2012 thing, so there's always somebody telling you, I think, that the world's going to end. Interesting things can be fun to consider, but don't get too caught up in these things if people don't have a track record. All right, Marlon Gone Surfing says, "Hi team, touching on from a question earlier about frequency. Positive thinking emits a frequency attracting more positive energy towards you. Bob Marley did not sing positive vibrations for no reason. I have proven manifestations through positive thinking, meditation, harnessing grateful and humble love energy, and that has changed the outcomes of circumstances. It is not because of being connected light worker. Anyone can do this, right? Also, did CIA kill off Bob Marley and John Lennon?"
So I don't know who was Bob Marley. We know John Lennon was murdered by somebody who had delusions. He was delusional, and he felt like that John Lennon was trying to take the place of Jesus. I think that was what his thing was, that if he didn't kill John Lennon, that he would try to take the place of Jesus. So he felt he was doing the work of God. And how did Bob Marley die?
We actually did a segment on this a while back. So a rival political party, because he was trying to bring everyone together, and the rival political faction had tried to have him killed, but he died of they tried to kill him, but he actually died of cancer, this rare form of melanoma that he had in his toe that he basically just didn't treat because of his Rastafarian belief that you didn't want to cut off parts of your body. I think that's
okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, I didn't think that Bob Marley was murdered. I was like, Bob Marley murdered? That's a new thing to me. I knew John Lennon had been killed.
Well, and there was theory that there was he was injected with a virus somehow in his toe. They gave him a pair of shoes. He got a cancer from the virus in the toe, and it was really it's actually, if you look it up, there's a form of melanoma that gets under the toenail. It's very odd, but it does happen. So
yeah, I have heard of that.
Okay. Next, Han writes, "Hi, Rudy and Sam. Do all different astrology calendars, zodiac, Chinese, Mayan, have a lot in common for people's strengths and weaknesses? And do the dates, time of birth, the positions of the planets really affect these a lot? Or are people living up to what they read about? And that's all. Thanks in advance. Cheers, Han." So he has a good point. A lot of the astrology things, you have zodiac signs and you put attributes to them and you interpret how people are. What do you think, Sam? Are these all kind of related and do similar things?
I think that there is something to it. It's like the numerology thing. It's like, there's something to it, but I can't speak to exactly what it is. Not my forte so much. Maybe something that I can investigate more, down the road when I'm not doing cryptos. But I do think that there is something that is tied to that, Hans. So thanks so much for asking.
It's always fun to ask because we never know what we're going to get Sam to say. So even though we know she's not an astrologist, sometimes you never know what she'll get. The Faded Brick writes, "If I bought an old farmhouse that had spirits in it and tore it down to build a new house, would the spirits be in the new house, or would they move to another part of the property, like the barn, or would they just be gone?"
Well, they don't normally leave when you tear the house down. They would just... most times they would just haunt the current property.
Okay. Yeah, you hear about sometimes activity will take up when people start doing construction projects. And Sam, in the town that you're in, I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that is pretty common where there's been a lot of new construction, but the spirits are still there, right?
Oh, yeah, I see them too. Like when we're walking down the street and stuff, there's so many where I live. Because I mean, it was settled in the 1600s. So yeah, it's been around a while.
Interesting. Yeah, they won't go away. All right. Next one. All right. Next question is from Aussie Girl. "Hi, Sam and Rudy. Will Taiwan be lost to China, and will Australia be dragged into a senseless war? There's a lot going on in the Asia Pacific region. It's extremely sensitive at the moment."
Well, Taiwan's not going to be lost to China, and Australia is not going to be dragged into any senseless war. There's not going to be any war. I am worried for China, however, though, because I do see some really bad things coming for China to the point that it breaks into 4 different areas of the country. Like it splits into 4 different. So, yeah, so they're going to have bigger fish to fry than like bothering with Taiwan and making trouble for Australia. And I know there's a lot going on in the Asian Pacific region right now, Aussie girl. It's unfortunate. I mean, I was very optimistic about Singapore and Taiwan in particular as far as the economies go. Because remember, there's going to be a lot of countries suffering because they're just printing money like crazy. And, you know, you can't feed your people with printed cash, you know. Eventually it's, yeah, I wonder at what point this is going to happen. Because remember, I told you they can play this game for quite a length of time.
Yeah. All right. Scott says the idea that humans may be a genetic enhancement of existing life forms by aliens has a certain plausibility to it. What accounts for the spirit, however? A genetically modified monkey, which can walk more upright and has less hair, doesn't automatically possess the human spirit, which seems to distinguish us from animals.
Yeah, and that's a really great question, and it's actually one that the people on the other side answered when they were giving me the information before I even thought to ask it. Because, you know, remember, people were asking about us being genetically modified, and I mean, we are one of a kind. It's not like they took the combination from another planet and used it here and it worked. We are one of a kind. Like there's no parts of the universe or other realms that have like humans, people like us. So how did we end up with spirits? Well, remember when the aliens were fooling around with planet Earth, Source at that time used their disobedience and turned it into a positive by saying, okay, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to airdrop into these humans when they're conceived. And then we're going to have a soul inside. And then that's how we're going to, because we've been discussing how we were going to expand our knowledge. And this is because everything is so easy here. You know, you think of something, you can create it with your mind. You know, you don't have to feed yourself. You don't have to, and, you know, seeing what was going to be going on with the humans made it a perfect situation to do that, you know, that upgrade, I guess, to Source. Because that's what's been happening since humanity was created, is that, you know, Source has just been upgrading and upgrading because, you know, we reincarnate over and over again. So, you know, you're there, you're part of Source, you come down here, you learn your lessons, you go back, you have your end of life review. And your end of life review is by far the most important. It's not even so much about like doing the right thing when you're here. I mean, obviously that's going to help people get to a higher level in different assignments on the other side. Because we're all about education, growing and advancing in our knowledge as individual pieces of Source, but then also as a collective. And so what's happened is that because so many people have already, you know, gone back so many times, you know, Source is growing in its knowledge and becoming better. And that is why we as humans are getting souls and monkeys. They do have like spirits, but they're not like part of Source. So all living creatures like monkeys, and well, that's how I talk to dogs and cats. I mean, dogs and cats are not human souls, but they are spiritual, like they are spirit beings. They do exist on the other side, you know, with us. It's just that they are not Source.
Okay. But bottom line, Source picked us and not monkeys. Is
right.
A simple way to say it. Okay, thanks,
right.
Sam. Last question of the night is from Tech Cow Girl. How will the average non-crypto person deal with the economic collapse? Will we lose people to starvation and see vast tent cities and people living in their cars? Good question.
Well, not so much in the United States, because there is going to be a call to the workforce. The workforce is going to be required in the US. Things are going to be heating up quite a bit. But there's a lot of economies that are going to have like pretty significant problems. Like I'm going to go back to the UK again. And their big problem is going to be food. And there's going to be a lot of food insecurity. So there are going to be a lot of people in that particular country. Like I'm talking about in a Western country. This is very unusual for people in the UK to be starving to death. That's an unusual thing. Like if you had told people 40 years ago that things would be so terrible in the United Kingdom that people would be starving to death, they would be like, oh no, it can't be that, can't be true. And it's like, yeah, that's what's coming, because again, the UK, they don't grow enough food to feed their population, and they have such a large percentage of the population that is redundant. And you cannot give 50% of your population a check, right? And then, you call it the safety net, right? Well, this safety net is full of half of the population of the UK, and it's just going to collapse. Boom. Everybody's in that net. It's just going to fall, just. And then so everybody, but not everybody is going to starve to death, because think about all the people who have checks, etc., from the government that allows them to survive. Well, I mean, many family members will step in and start to take their own personal resources to help these individuals. So the ones that will be in big trouble will be the ones who have nobody who has their back.
Okay. And that, that's the big difference. I think since the Great Depression, you had the famous bread lines where people would go out, but now, you have electronic debit cards, right? That the government, and so you'll see that assistance, and possibly, Sam, do you think more fixed income or government assistance going out to people, printing money, continuing to compensate for the inflation to some degree?
Well, I mean, there's too many people who are redundant, like who are in the safety net, and the safety net is going to break, is what I'm saying. Okay. But yeah, in the meantime, they're continuing. I mean, the COVID, they actually put more people on a check than ever before, because they give this check in Canada. They give a check every month of $2,000. Wow. And I know somebody who was already in a little bit of a pickle because they, had not advanced in their career, etc., and were, spinning their tires, I guess, and they're getting older and older. And it's like, you can't live off the pension check. Like, you got to have a pension separate, or at least have your house paid for. You can't be paying rent. Right. And it's like, but if there's lots of people who are still paying rent, and they don't own any assets. So those are the people who are going to get hurt the worst. If you don't own cryptos, gold or silver, real estate, and assets, then those are the people who are going to be, hurt the worst by all this.
Yep. Okay. All right, Sam. Well, great show tonight. Thank you. I see we have one last question come in, but let's go ahead and wrap it up. We're here at just over an hour. So thanks, everyone. And we will talk to you tomorrow on the Meetup with Moo Ants.
I know. Thanks so much again, everyone, for hanging out. And I was talking to Rudy, and I told him that this later 1 hour time is going to be par for the course, probably between now until about October, because where I live, it is getting lighter, later and later. So of course the kids want to do stuff, and you find yourself out doing things and everything. And anyways, and nice to see you, Mountie. Better and better. Thanks again, everybody, for hanging out, and I'll see you tomorrow.